I just went live. It's preparing.
This meeting is now streaming live on YouTube. All right, let me see here. Live. Upcoming. Oh no, there's two of them there.
Went live. It's preparing.
No, but that's not. That's. Right, let me see here. Live.
Oh.
Upcoming. Oh no, there's two of them there.
It's preparing.
No, but that's not. That's here.
Okay, I muted the stream so that, because otherwise we're going to get an echo happening. Are there two videos that you're seeing?
Yeah. See, when I'm in the channel content and it's showing two of them now. So I feel like maybe you've added a second one instead of the one that I scheduled, but I don't think it matters.
Okay.
If you're advertising, I think it might matter, you know?
Right. I mean, I'm only seeing one, but maybe because that's really weird because I just used the connection. I wonder if you can mute or stop it, the live stream.
Did you use the key that I gave you before? Yeah. And this is what it did. Hey.
No.
I can't even get to there to watch it.
What?
Oh, there it went. Oh, it looks stupid.
Because we're behind too, right? We're going. We're having way too much fun. I just used the connection.
Yeah. Okay. Well, it's on there. So.
Or stop it. The live stream.
Did you use the key that I gave you before? Okay. Now this is what need to mute this. Hang on.
So, yeah, just up in the tab at the top, you should be able to right click and then mute this page.
There it went. Okay. I think I've muted that one. And I don't want to watch myself at all.
Isn't it awful? My face is so crooked too. Like anyway.
All right. It's gone. I would like to experiment with something.
Okay.
So I have my other computer and I'm going to try to log in. I'm going to try to go into Zoom with that one too, so that I can see people's faces while my presentation is running.
Okay.
So let me see.
I'm just going to do the ding play sound when someone joins so that I don't miss them. Oh, somebody's joining.
And we might have a bit of an echo here.
Okay.
Yeah, that's me. Well, I get it muted and I won't turn on the sound of the camera, but
okay.
Okay. Now you'll have to make me a host, I think.
Okay. Which I'll make both of you a co-host because I don't know which one is you because they both just say generally.
Okay, yeah, the one without the camera on is the one that I need for the presentation, but you can do them both. I don't think it matters.
No.
My phone is. Oh, I got a security thing because you logged into the Atheist Calgary. All right, so I'm gonna share my screen.
Oh, it looks great, January.
Oh, there it goes. Okay. Okay, so now you can pin that one. Is that right?
I should be able to spotlight it. Yes, let me just see. Oh, I see. That's the one without the camera that I'm.
Yeah. Right? And then hopefully I can put our beautiful faces over here. How come I can't make that bigger? Well, okay. That's all
so yeah, I can spotlight you as a speaker. It looks good. Looks like it'll work. How's it working for you?
Yeah, it's okay. It's just that I want to see. Well, I guess maybe it's because there's not more people here.
Your view, as soon as you share the screen, it will fill up. So when I spotlight you, you're not going to be able to see the people. But everybody else will see you as a speaker. So it's better at their end.
Oh, wait a minute. You mean I still won't be able to see people?
I don't think you will.
Because that's why I wanted two things on. Because if they're seeing the slideshow.
Well, let me see what happens if I spotlight.
Why don't you not spotlight and just let people choose if they want to or not? What do you
It
think?
just comes up better as a recording if we're recording it, because then because if you're spotlighted.
Yeah,
So
I don't want my face spotlighted though. I want the slideshow spotlighted, right?
no, that's what's happening right now. There's a big screen with your
Oh, there it is. Yeah.
presentation, and you're just off to the side.
Okay. I
If I
wonder how.
spotlight.
See, here's the thing. I want to be able to see everybody. And I think if you're spotlighting, then it's not going to let me see. Can you not spotlight?
I can.
Individuals
However,
can just choose if they want or not.
and that works. However, remember then though, when we're recording this, that the other people will be visible instead of just the speaker.
Oh. Damn. I really wanted to see people.
I hear you.
I hate this. I hate it so much.
So here is a suggestion that, is there particular areas where you want to see people? Is there like activities or something you're getting us to do?
Not really. I just thought because it's kind of short and I wanted to have lots of time for discussion. I'm not going to, there's a few reflection pieces, but there's not an activity.
Okay. I was going to say, you can always go to just not sharing your screen, and we can change it as required, but we could practice and see what happens with Larry.
Yeah. I want to have this. Okay, good. That's working. Okay, well, you know what? It's fine. It's fine. I can see a few people.
If you're spotlighted though, you probably won't be able to, but.
Well, it should mostly be the slides that should be spotlighted.
Yeah. Oh yeah. That's what happens. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what I usually do at like in the question answer, I spotlight you and I, so that.
Okay.
But maybe you want to see people and you don't want me spotlighting. That would be fine too. Hey, Larry.
Hey. Janelle, why are you on twice?
If I'm so important.
Yeah, okay.
No, one is the slides. Excuse me. This is what we're just trying to figure out, is because I want to actually be able to see people. And this is one of the downfalls of these video things, is that when you're showing slides, you can't see people who are in the meeting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's odd.
So I'm trying to bypass that, but it's still not really working. Excuse me. And
Adrian, you okay?
It's me.
Were you smoking a toke before you?
Yeah, I wish I was. I was nervous. I have been working on some graphic stuff, but I just haven't had time to finish, Adrian. So for our meeting on Wednesday, I'll have some stuff to talk about, simple stuff. So
sounds good.
Yeah.
I'm cooking bacon in my oven, so I'll be up and down.
Ooh, that sounds good.
Well, it's just so we have it without having to cook it every single day.
That's what I do too, Larry. Cook up, well, except it's backfired now because my son knows that I do that, and so then he eats a pound of bacon in a day.
Oh yeah, right. Well, my cousin, she cuts up a whole bunch of onions, puts them on trays, and put them in the freezer. And then she, collects them up when they're frozen and puts them in big plastic bags. And then whatever she needs, a cup or two, it's ready.
Nice. That's a good idea. Hi, Danita.
Hello.
It's been so long.
Hey, Danita, nice to see you.
Yeah, it's been a while. Yeah, there's so much Zoom stuff going on, and I'm so tired of sitting in front of the computer. pick and choose what I actually join in on, but it's nice to see everyone.
It smells like maple in here.
Are you still busy working at home, Janelle? Yeah.
Yeah, they've said to expect to go back in the fall.
Oh,
So I think, you know, it entirely depends on vaccinations.
yeah.
So here's hoping. I got my shot.
Oh, did you? Which
Yeah.
one? Oh, because you're an educator, right? Yeah.
No, because I just happened to be in the right place at the right time.
AstraZeneca or which one?
I got Pfizer.
Really?
Yeah. So I know a guy who works at who manages a Shoppers Drug Mart. And they were, you know, it was one of those situations that they had the vials, they need to be used.
Yes.
They didn't, you know, have
You
enough
were there,
appointments booked,
right?
or people didn't show up or whatever happened. And yeah, I went in and the pharmacist had done 141 the day before, he said. And I can't remember, I think he was on track to do about the same. This was on Friday that I got mine.
Yeah.
And it was like 2 seconds. He's like, sit down, boom, next person, boom. You know, he's like, this is a machine, keep it going.
That's excellent. So glad to hear that. I am at the situation where I've had one and I'm coming up on 21 days after, because I had it March 31st.
Mhm.
And you know, I'm booked for my next one in July. Like,
Mhm.
how does that happen? So anyway, I'm going to call a pharmacy or even just walk in and just say, you know, I'm booked,
Can you check the bacon for me, please?
but the deadline, I am actually not very happy to be
You
in
don't
this
know what crispy bacon looks like?
Larry.
Larry.
I muted him.
Jeez.
I'm not happy being in this science experiment where we pull it out. I mean, I'm old. The old people need to be looked after. My husband's even older with heart conditions and all of that stuff. But, you know, I'm so happy to hear that you've got yours. And that's the way the pharmacies are working. If you just take the incentive and go in and present yourself and just say, what are the possibilities? I mean, I made a phone call and they said, oh, no problem. This was mid-March. I
Yeah,
said,
I
well,
think that some pharmacies are taking names. If you go and you put your name on a list, and then at the end of the day, if that situation comes up, they will start calling people to come in.
I actually have a friend in the US that got hers by doing that. And she said she's never moved so fast in all her life. And she got a phone call.
I'll be there in 10 minutes.
Yeah,
I had to drive my mom within an hour to get her to the pharmacist. She said, you've got to drive me like right now. And then here we are, we're driving to the wrong pharmacist.
Oh, no.
And it's like, well, why didn't you tell me we were driving the wrong way? And so it's like, well, I had to turn around, and it's like, it's no worry, we'll get there within 10 minutes from where we were. So, and it was like, okay, but she got the shot, and then I called the pharmacy and I said, well, am I eligible to go in because of my condition? And they said, yeah, come in. But mine was a bit better in that she said, come in at 3 and you can do that. So
Good.
I was able to get it, but yeah.
That's good, Vincent. Yeah.
But no, not that one night. She got a phone call and she says, can you be here within an hour? It's because when she went online to do the online thing, all of it kept getting bubbled up. All of the times kept getting blanked out as we were looking at it in real time.
Huh.
So the next time she could have got in was like May. So,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
people
But I
kept,
think- What people have been saying is just keep trying, like keep phoning, because their information in the booking sites is changing every day and they keep getting more. So if you haven't, even if you're scheduled way out, to just keep calling and you might get in sooner.
yeah.
I know people have had good luck just calling 811 rather than trying to do it on the website. And yeah, it's,
Charlie, I got the Pfizer one. Sorry, I'm just reading a chat here.
oh, yeah.
I think everyone got the Pfizer one. Isn't that the only one available?
The AstraZeneca.
Oh, no,
is
the
becoming available
AstraZeneca.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Moderna. There's some Moderna.
Is there some Moderna here?
Some Moderna.
There was some. I mean, I think it's out right now. But
Right, yeah.
There was some. Yeah.
Yeah, the most common seems to be the Astra, oh no, the Pfizer.
Pfizer. Yeah.
I know my
Pfizer.
son has had both.
Oh, did he have a mix and match?
No, because he's in California and they're just way ahead of vaccinations than they are in Canada. So, and
Okay.
he's part of the school, like he's part of UCSB. So anybody who was an employee of the school got their shots. And he had a second, and he had, because he's young, he had a pretty bad 24 hours.
Oh yeah. Yeah,
He's-
my arm was sore. It was more sore than like a normal flu shot, I thought. But only for, that day, and then it was fine. So
Yeah, it was his second. His first wasn't too bad. And his second, he wears one of those rings that monitors your heart rate.
oh,
And his temperature, body temperature. And in the middle of the night when he woke up, he looked at his phone and it actually had a note, "Are you okay?" on his phone, because his temperature was like this and then it spiked suddenly and his heart rate went way up. So
wow,
it was really interesting. Yeah, he said it was quite cool to have the rig on to verify that he was not, he was actually really was not well. His immune system was working overtime, and
Well,
that's
that's
good, right?
a good thing. That's a
It's a
good
good
thing,
thing.
right? This is
Yeah.
what my mom actually explained to me, because she's a paramedic and she's had
Right.
both her shots. Yeah, and she said that the healthier you are, the younger you are, the worse the second shot's going to be, because
Yeah.
your immune system will respond better.
Right. Makes
Yeah.
sense. Yeah.
So now I mean, I'm just gonna, whenever my turn is for the second one, I'll just book a day off work and just like stay in bed. I mean, I'll just plan for it, right?
That's right. Yeah.
Shelly, I got it at Shoppers Drug Mart.
Yeah, so did I. Shoppers Drug Mart. They were pretty good. So, yeah, on the Alberta website, they say, oh, it's 4 months. And it's like, yeah, that's funny. That's Pfizer says 1 month, but no, they're doing 4 months.
Yeah.
Which I don't understand why that is, but
Well, I think that one of the things is because of lack of availability of numbers of vaccines, and they are actually finding that it is more effective for most people to wait. So there is some
Wait.
evidence that it's a good
Okay.
thing to do. So it's not just an arbitrary thing that they're doing. There's some pretty good reasons.
mhm.
Sorry,
And I, that first shot makes a huge difference. Even just getting that first shot to everybody makes it.
Yeah.
sorry, where did you hear that it actually does make it better? I just heard that there was, they based it on some evidence that, like, for cancer patients and elderly, 3 months was okay. So I thought they were just extending this just to get more first shots in people's arms.
That was the original reason, but there has been some evidence since then that has shown that the efficacy of the second one is actually even better. I mean, not that you can improve much on 95%, but hey, it's not bad. It's not a bad thing.
Okay.
If I can interject to the COVID discussion, today is Christopher Hitchens' birthday.
Oh,
It's also Seth Andrews' birthday. Well, there wasn't a great woo, yay! So everybody needs to go do some research and listen to some Christopher Hitchens videos and discussions and arguments and read his articles. He's a valued man that increased the position of atheism over time.
You wanna
I
hear-
have my to hitch shirt on.
I should put my t-shirt on, Lois, that I got at the,
Yes,
yeah.
right.
I will go get that. I will go
The
get that.
interesting story about Christopher Hitchens, when I first was getting to know Lois and some others here, I was looking at various people and I discovered Christopher Hitchens on YouTube and I was enthralled, right? I thought, what a well-spoken man. He is just, and a little sharp, but brilliant, right? He was very, very brilliant with his intellect. I don't know how else you can say it. He was amazing. And then I found out he was dead.
Yeah.
I grieved.
Uh-huh.
Because I didn't know he was dead until I'd sort of been following him and I've read some of his books. And then I discovered that he was no longer alive and I was very sad. So it's, yeah, he's quite something.
I think that's something that we as ASC could reinvigorate, because those people that actually started the movement, the atheist movement, are of such importance to how everybody has gotten to the stage that we're at now.
There we go. Is that good for birthday? I don't know.
Oh, I can say, is
That's
my
right.
birthday I shared with James Randi, which I was thrilled to share my birthday with James Randi.
Oh,
So I was very sad when he died this year, right? It was a very sad moment, but I still will share my birthday with him anyway, I think going forward.
Yeah. It's also Seth Andrews' birthday. And if you don't know about Seth Andrews, there's a lot of good stuff on his
So he
site.
shared Christopher Hitchens' birthday. That's amazing.
Yeah,
He must
Yeah.
like that.
yeah.
We should maybe alternate between Sagan and Hitch, because we always celebrate Sagan Day.
Yeah,
there's actually a
really
great
good
idea. Great
Yes.
idea.
Yes, that's a great idea. There's a bar in Toronto, I think, that's called The Hitch,
Yep.
that's dedicated to him. Yeah. I'd
And
love
everything shut down. Damn it.
How many bars do you know about, Lois?
That's the only one.
Oh, sure.
Oh.
I've been around Lois a long time. She's got a couple more up her sleeve.
I
Well,
just
I'll
want to
tell
know
you, in the
them.
past 5 years, I've been in more pubs than I was in the previous 70.
That's a good thing.
Yes.
Lois, you're not 55, are you?
No, I'm not 55. No.
Oh, okay. You're 45.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
that's why I got my AstraZeneca shot. I mean, my Pfizer shot a month ago.
I was trying to be nice.
And you were being very nice.
Yes.
So should we get about another 2 minutes then, John Lee, before we get started? What do you think?
Yeah, whatever you
Still,
like.
people are still coming in, so we'll see if we get some more coming in the next little
I'm
bit.
just seeing, I think I've met everybody here except for Jacob. Hi, Jacob. Are you new?
Yeah, I'm new.
Excellent. Welcome.
Welcome.
Yeah, I just saw this in my Meetups feed and it looked really interesting.
Good. Well, thanks so much for joining us.
Are you from Calgary or?
No, I'm
Oh.
from Eugene, Oregon.
Oh, cool.
Wow.
Hey, we
Yes,
love it when we
yes.
have people from all over.
Yeah, since the pandemic, it doesn't really matter where I am. I could be on the
Uh-huh.
North Pole.
Oh,
It's
that's
true.
Welcome.
I myself am from the Antarctic.
No, he's not.
You have a bit of a penguin look about you, Vincent. Really.
Do I? Oh,
little bit.
a very fat penguin, but hey, okay.
A snowman, Vincent, a snowman.
A snowman, yes.
And
I
Jacob,
do like the snow.
Yeah.
What's the
Well-
situation where you are in terms of shots? Are you guys all vaccinated or?
What, me?
So yeah, Jacob, I was just asking about what it was like there.
Oh, well, I'm in the least. I'm younger and healthy, so I'm going to be last, and I don't. It's not available for me to get a vaccine until April 19th,
Okay.
and then even then, I don't know how long it'll be because I'm going to try, but I'm sure there's going to be a wave of people trying to get the vaccine starting on the day that it's open to everyone. But I'm going to get it as soon as I can.
I know the US is way, way ahead of us in terms of the percentage of people who've been vaccinated.
Oh, we're ahead of Canada?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know.
In vaccinations.
Yeah,
You-
this
You don't see
lockdown,
that
no.
saying-
You beat us at getting
Yeah.
more people infected than us, and now you're beating us at getting more vaccinated. So you're ahead either
behind
way.
in everything else.
Well, welcome. We've got a few. We have had someone from Mississauga. No, sorry, Missouri. No, Minneapolis, and we have one that has joined us from
New Jersey?
Nigeria.
And New Jersey, we've had New Jersey, California. So you can
And-
join us.
Tom,
Welcome from, or I think you're the first person
no,
from
Tom is in
Oregon.
Salem, Oregon.
Oh,
that
that's
we've
right.
had
Tom
twice.
is in Oregon. Yes.
Yeah.
Before
You're
COVID,
right.
did you all meet physically?
Yeah.
Yeah, oh, yeah. We've been meeting together since 2008. Well,
Oh,
In the bar.
Some of us, yeah.
I
Yeah.
think it would be sad if all
some of
these
us
groups-
older people have been meeting in the bar since
I think it
2008.
would be sad if all these groups started leaving meetups and leaving Zoom, and then they only exist in a coffee house.
Well, we're planning on keeping it going. We may not do it quite as frequently as we are right now, but we really like how we're getting people from all over the world. Really, we had even somebody from Australia once.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, someone
it's really
from,
cool.
there was, no, don't forget, there was someone from Africa,
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Yeah, and a friend of mine from Costa Rica.
That's right.
Costa
A
Rica.
lot.
And we've had someone from Nova Scotia
Yeah.
a couple of times. A couple
Yeah.
of different
New
people from
York,
Nova Scotia.
New
Yeah.
York and Massachusetts.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're so
So
popular.
we really want to keep it going. So I think that
Well, we call it a webinar, so we have to stay on the web.
what our plan is when they become more alive, we could do them on the web. One person can be monitoring from their home, and we can also have it at the pub. So it will be a combined event. That's what our plan is going forward.
I just thought of a
I'll
name.
volunteer for the pub.
It's a combination of a seminar and a
I'll make the
webinar. So
sacrifice.
it'll be a swebinar.
A webinar.
Webinar.
You could call it a pub in art.
A what, Jacob?
A pubinar.
Pubinar. Oh,
I like that even better.
that's the
Yes.
one. That's the winner chicken dinner.
All right. Well, on that note, it's a good note to start things off. I'm going to share my screen and do my usual housekeeping before we get going. I want to make sure. Yeah, there we go. Let's get rid of that. And hopefully you can see that. It should say Western Canadian Reason Conference, as most of you know, but of course Jacob won't know this. This all started because we were going to do a conference June 2020, but the pandemic hit. We canceled it until this May, and of course the pandemic's still here. Then we tried to do it in September and it's still here. So we are now hoping to do our conference on May 14th, 2022. And we will verify times and dates as we know more as we go ahead. But in the meantime, of course, we have had, just a second, I don't know where my little arrows have gone. Hang on a second. There we go. My Zoom stuff is all in the way up. There we go. No. The Zoom stuff keeps covering my arrows. Let's see if I can do it with my arrow keys. Yes, way. So just a reminder, this group has been great, as I say, but we have to go through this to make sure that everyone behaves. We are an inclusive community of atheists, humanists, skeptics, and secular free thinkers who welcome people of all backgrounds and identities. And we won't agree all the time, but disagreement is no excuse for disrespectful behavior. Disagreement should be resolved in a constructive manner and without personal attacks. Challenge ideas, not people. Do not insult or put down other participants. Harassment and other exclusionary behavior are not acceptable. As I say, we've never had a problem with this group, but I just wanted to read that out because I have been to other groups that this has been a problem with. A reminder to please donate if you can. The donations, thank you so much for what you have donated so far, because it has kept us okay, because we have these extra expenses with regards to Zoom and all kinds of other things we never thought we would have to worry about. So please do donate. You can either go to our website at atheistcalgary.com and just hit the donate key, which is at the top of the page, or I will hopefully remember, and if I don't remember, Jan Lee or Lois remind me to put the link in the chat so you can go directly from the chat. Also, you can become a member, $20 per year, join at atheistcalgary.com. And remember, during the Q&A, please post your questions in the chat and I will read them out so those listening via the stream will know the questions. You may have noticed that we are streaming live. Oh, and which reminds me, I need to, hey, Lois, can you press the record key button? Because I've got it hidden right now. So
Oh,
if
sure.
you can press record, that would be great. And so just put them into the Q&A. You can direct them just to me if you would prefer, or you can put them out to everybody and I will make sure that I can keep track of them. And so the next webinar that we're having is an interview with Rob Palmer about his experiences with recovering from religion, and that's Wednesday, May 5th. And tonight, I'm so thrilled, our fearless leader is going to present Unpacking the Concept of Privilege. And for those who don't know, it is Janalee Morris. So I'll stop sharing and I'm going to let you take over, Janalee. And did you want me to spotlight Janalee or not?
You do whatever you think is going to work best. I am going to share my other screen here. What I was hoping is that if I had two computers going, I could see your lovely faces, and I don't think that's going to actually work, but that come up?
Yes, it did.
All right, I'm going to try to.
And I will be muting everybody as well. So make sure if you do want to say anything, do say so in the chat for the time being. At the end, by the way, we will have a chance to just do more of an informal Q&A, and we will stop the recording at that time. All right.
And please, if you do want to say something in the middle, don't wait till the end. Go ahead and pop it in the chat and Adrian will interrupt. I prefer that than waiting till the end. So if you have something to say, please go ahead. And I will start with the land acknowledgement. So the Atheist Society of Calgary acknowledges the traditional territories of the people of the Treaty 7 region in southern Alberta. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation of Alberta Region 3. I also want to begin by acknowledging my own biases in doing this presentation. So I am a white middle-class woman with an advanced education, and I benefit from those pieces of my identity. I do believe that privilege, racism, and systemic discrimination are present in our world and in our everyday interactions, and that the evidence supports my conclusion. Also that my own livelihood is partially dependent on confronting issues of equity, diversity, and inclusion. I work at Mount Royal University in the Access and Inclusion Services office. And part of my job is to do EDI seminars and education around campus. So I'm acknowledging that right up front. So this is a discussion or a presentation about privilege. What is privilege? But in order for us to really dig in and understand privilege, we are also going to touch on a couple of other concepts. Those concepts being the idea of meritocracy and also the idea of systemic discrimination, because these things are really closely tied together. So I'm going to talk about those other things as well as we go through. So what is privilege? Privilege, very, very simply, is an unearned advantage gained as a result of one's identity. So it's not, you earned, it's not the same kind of privilege as, when you're talking to your kids and you say, if you do the dishes, then you can have the privilege of using the car tonight. It's not that kind of privilege. This is the kind of privilege that you just have simply by the way that you were born or where you were born or what language you speak or that sort of a thing. And I am going to switch now to a little video that I think really in about 2 minutes, sums up what is this idea of privilege. And this one is specifically about white privilege, although that's not the only thing that we're going to be talking about today. Oh, sorry. You know, I'm not very good at this part. Oh, there it is. There it is. Okay. Somebody please let me know if you cannot see that. I'm going to press play. Somebody can let me know if there's any issues with hearing it. And just thanks to Maria for sharing this video with me. I thought it was so good that I wanted to share it with everybody.
We've been engaged in a global conversation about race and racism. You've probably had discussions at home, at school, or at work, and in those conversations, you've probably heard the term white privilege. You may have even had this term used in a way that felt like an insult or an accusation. Others will have told you that it's all just made up to make white people feel bad, and none of this is right. Privilege is a hard concept for people to understand because normally when we talk of privilege, we imagine immediate, unearned riches and tangible benefits for anyone who has it. But white privilege, and indeed all privilege, is actually more about the absence of inconvenience, the absence of an impediment or challenge. And as such, when you have it, you really don't notice it. But when it's absent, it affects everything you do. There are lots of types of privilege out there. The privilege of being born into a wealthy family versus a poor family is kind of obvious. But then there's the privilege of being able-bodied versus having or acquiring a disability that most of us take for granted. I have two very close friends who are wheelchair users, and I'll be honest, when I first met them, I was completely ignorant about the everyday ways their lives are made harder through no fault of their own. Some of these ways are simply thoughtless, but some of them are just the way we live, just the way we build infrastructure, just the way everything works. That just makes their life harder than mine. That's just one of the ways that I'm privileged. And understanding that, embracing that, doesn't make me a bad person. But ignoring it raises the chance that my friends will be excluded in ways that are not obvious to me. And as their friend, I can't allow that. There's a good chance as a white person watching this, your life is already hard. Every day you have to overcome some difficulty or challenge just to get by, but you can still have white privilege. White privilege doesn't mean you haven't worked hard or you don't deserve the success you've had. It doesn't mean that your life isn't hard or that you've never suffered. It simply means that your skin color has not been the cause of your hardship or suffering. There is nothing but a benefit to understanding our own privileges, white and otherwise. It brings us closer to those who are different. It helps us be vigilant about the ways we treat others different than us. It helps us make a society that is fairer and more equal. Having white privilege doesn't make your life easy, but understanding it can help you realize why some people's lives are harder than they should be.
Okay, thanks again, Maria, for sharing that with me. And I'll go back to my slideshow here. Okay, so I don't know whether there's that black bar there, but okay, so this is from Peggy McIntosh, who is a women's studies professor who started writing about privilege and white privilege in the 1980s. And she describes it as privilege is an invisible package of unearned assets that I can count on cashing in each day, but about which I was meant to remain oblivious. So having privilege is invisible. We don't notice it unless we encounter a situation where we no longer have that privilege. So I want to share a little story about my own privilege. In about 10 years ago, was going through a separation. and in a situation where I needed to find a new place to live. And in Calgary at that time, it was really, really difficult to get a place, rent a place. There was very little vacancy. And I had a place and ended up having to move out of that place because it got sold. So I was in a situation where really my only choice was to try to purchase a home. And because, it's Calgary and I didn't make enough money, I needed help from my parents, who co-signed my mortgage for me when I purchased my house. And when they co-signed that mortgage for me, they were required to put up some assets, some collateral against that loan. And what they put up was our family farm. And this is a picture of the barn in my family farm, which was built in 1910 by my great-grandfather, who immigrated here from Germany and homesteaded on Treaty 4 land. And that land, of course, was taken from the Indigenous people of southern Saskatchewan and given to my great-grandfather. And then, 100 years later, I was able to take advantage of the privilege of having come from a settler family to purchase my own house because we had that land in our family name. So does that mean that I didn't work hard, that I don't pay, my mortgage, that my parents haven't worked hard? My grandparents have all worked very hard to build up this farm and to make this land turn a living into what is kind of just a pile of dirt in southern Saskatchewan. But it does mean that I had that opportunity where others would not have had. And that, for me, represents privilege that I have experienced. So privilege does not mean that you've never suffered hardships. It does not mean that you've had an easy life or have had everything handed to you. It doesn't mean that you're racist or any of the ists. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person. It just means that any difficulties that you have faced have not been as a result of an attribute assigned to you as a result of just being, of just where you happen to be born or sort of living. I do want to touch a little bit on this idea of racism, because I know when we talk about privilege, it does have a tendency to make people feel badly. If you have privilege, then you do have a tendency to feel badly about that, and that's not the intention. And also having privilege and admitting privilege sometimes can be equated with racism or acknowledging that you've done something to contribute to a racist system. And I really want to differentiate here about this idea of racism has become kind of a binary system. So we obviously think that being racist is bad, right? And so we have this idea, this came from Dr. Robin DiAngelo, who wrote White Fragility. If being racist is bad, it is also being racist means you're ignorant. Being racist means you're bigoted, you're prejudiced, you're mean-spirited, probably means that you're old, you could be Southern. This is obviously a US kind of take on this idea of what is racist. What does it mean to be racist? And therefore, if you're not racist, then you're good. So you're educated, you're progressive, you're open-minded, you're well-intentioned, you're probably younger and probably Northern in the US context. But the problem with this binary is that it closes the conversation on what is racism, what are some of the systemic discrimination issues that we're facing, and if you're part of that system, does that automatically make you a bad person? And of course, the answer is no. But when we think about racism in these black and white terms, then we're actually closing down the dialogue and making it really difficult for us to progress out of it. It makes it really difficult for us to acknowledge when we do something, not that we know that we've done it or that we intended to do it, but it really makes it difficult for us to acknowledge that we have done something that, yes, indeed, is racist or is discriminatory, because that would mean we're a bad person. Okay. So I want to talk just a little bit about this idea of meritocracy. Of course, meritocracy means that everyone gets a fair shot. It's based on merit. If you work hard and you pull yourself up by your bootstraps, you will be rewarded. If you simply have merit, if you have virtue and you can show that, then you will be rewarded and you will be successful. And of course, this is sort of the myth that we grow up with, that we think, you work hard and you're going to get ahead, you're going to have a good life. Of course, what we know is that meritocracy is a bit of a myth, because the system has built in advantages for some folks that don't exist for others. And here I'd just like to tell another little personal story of something that I think is how my lack of privilege in this area worked against me. So when I first went to university, I'm from Saskatchewan. I went to the University of Saskatchewan, but I'm from a really small town, the farm, obviously you saw. I had to move into the big city of Saskatoon, and my hope was to get into medical school. So I did 2 years of school, majoring in biochemistry. I did well. I had an A average. I applied for medical school. I had my interview for medical school, and I did not get in. Not because I didn't meet the requirements, but because I just was outcompeted by somebody else. And what I really came to understand through that experience was most of the people who got in to medical school were people who lived at home, who had an income so that they didn't have to worry about where, how to get extra income. Whereas I had no choice. I was rural, so I had to move into the city. I had to pay rent. I had to purchase my groceries. I had to cook my own food. I had to do my laundry. I had to work usually 2 part-time jobs at the same time as taking all of my classes in order to just be at university. So it's not that I didn't work hard, or even probably harder than some of those people who got in to medical school. It was just that I had a limited amount of time that I could spend on my studies, and because I had to go and waitress at Boston Pizza in order to pay my rent. So sometimes merit isn't all that things are based on. And then I really just wanted to very, very quickly touch on this idea of systemic discrimination. And this could be its own pubinar in and of itself. But I did just want to touch on this because I did state this as one of my biases. I do absolutely 100% believe that there is systemic discrimination. And some of these statistics, I think, illustrate that. So for example, these are Canadian statistics from the 2018 census. And the first block here shows Black Canadians are nearly twice as likely as non-racialized Canadians to be considered low income. And in the second one, the unemployment rate, Black Canadians are far more likely than non-racialized Canadians and other visible minorities to be unemployed. And so we can look at those statistics and say, why is that this entire group of people are less able to earn incomes on par with others, are less able to secure employment? I think that we can't say that it's an inherent attribute of being a Black Canadian that you would earn less money. There has to be something, if we're looking at something on a statistical level like this, there has to be something in the system that is preventing those people from performing at the same level as others. And that's what systemic discrimination or systemic racism is. And you can talk about all kinds of examples here. We can talk about the prison system, we can talk about education, we can talk about all kinds of things that really illustrate systemic discrimination, and not just amongst racialized people, but we can look at stats for women, in terms of how much money women make as opposed to men, average income, those sorts of things. And those things happen because of the systems that we've built and the systems that we live in. So there's lots of places that privilege lives, right? There's lots of sort of locations, and we are not simply one piece of our identities. We are all a whole bunch of different kinds of people at the same time, right? So I'm a woman of a rural background, I'm middle class, I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, like I have all of these different identities. I'm an atheist, right? And all of those things can come either with privilege or have the opposite effect of that, or some of them maybe are just neutral depending on what situation you're in. So here are some examples. Geographic region of origin. So for example, I used to do a lot of work in Africa, and it would always strike me that, you know, I'm the daughter of a poor farmer in Saskatchewan, and I get to travel all around the world and do this work. And I'm sitting under a tree in rural Uganda with the daughter of a poor farmer from Uganda who, you know, isn't sure if she's going to be able to get water that evening for her family. So your current geographic region, sexual orientation, your gender, your race, ethnic group, language, your gender identity, your religion or non-religion, family status, social class, ability, your age, your education, your body type. There's lots of different examples of where you may be privileged or not. And, you know, an example, of course, that I experience as being a woman, there is a disadvantage that I have experienced as a woman just living in this world. So for example, I wonder how many women here have had to think about going for a walk at night. Is it something that you've had to consider? Should I walk alone? Do I have to have somebody with me? Do I have my phone at the ready if I have to walk out to my car in the evening? Do I ask somebody to walk with me? Is there a safe walk program? Do I check how many lights there are on the street before I go out and do that? So that's something that I do automatically as a woman. It's not something necessarily that a man would do because they experience a privilege in that sense. If I'm going to go on a date, you know, there's some careful safety things that I would consider before meeting with somebody in that circumstance. As a woman, you know, I think we're often encouraged to learn some kind of self-defense, right, to protect ourselves in a situation where we might be taken advantage of, right? So these are the kinds of things that as a woman we typically do think about, and I think that as a man you typically would not give a second thought to. And so this idea that, you know, you're sort of on guard against things like being raped would be something that would be considered, you know, a privilege for some and not for others. So I found this on my Facebook page the other day, and I thought it was a really interesting example of privilege in this sense. And so this is a really good list of ways to defend against rape. And I know it's small, so I'm just going to read it out to you. Okay, so it says, number 1, don't put drugs in women's drinks. Number 2, when you see a woman walking by herself, leave her alone. Number 3, if you pull over to help a woman whose car is broken down, remember not to rape her. Number 4, if you are in an elevator and a woman gets in, don't rape her. Number 5, when you encounter a woman who is asleep, the safest course of action is to not rape her. And number 6, never creep into a woman's home through an unlocked door or window or spring out at her from between parked cars or rape her. Number 7, remember, people go to the laundry room to do their laundry. Do not attempt to molest someone who is alone in a laundry room. Number 8, use the buddy system. If it is inconvenient for you to stop yourself from raping women, ask a trusted friend to accompany you at all times. Number 9, carry a rape whistle. If you find that you're about to rape someone, blow the whistle until someone comes to stop you. And number 10, don't forget, honesty is the best policy. When asking a woman out on a date, don't pretend that you're interested in her as a person. Tell her straight up that you expect to be raping her later. And if you don't communicate your intentions, the woman may take it as a sign that you do not plan to rape her. So that's the part that I kind of wanted to see people for. But so anyway, so the whole point of that is just that when we uncover privilege, when we kind of turn it on its head and look at it from the other viewpoint, we can see just how invisible it is and how ridiculous it is when we look at it from the other perspective, and how it completely disadvantages one group of people when in fact those are not the people that should be disadvantaged, right? So okay, so I already did talk about this slide about, you know, intersectionality, about being, we're sort of all of our identities all of the time. So I would like, I'm just going to stop sharing here. And I just wonder if people could just take a minute, and you don't have to share, you can't, you're welcome to share if you'd like to, or if you just want to reflect for yourself, if you can think of a few places where you might experience privilege. And I'm just going to sort of pause for about 2 minutes and invite people to do that.
So Jana-Lee, just to interrupt people's thoughts for a minute, the chat was going wild after you showed that thing with the rape. So, and I think there were some good comments.
Okay, excellent.
Interesting perspectives, and yeah, just because I know it's so weird to speak into dead space.
Yeah,
I was laughing.
good. Okay, well, people took that in the way that it was supposed to be taken.
Okay. Oh, should I just write it down, my comment, or should I make it verbally?
Adrian, what would you prefer?
Either, it's up to you, Jana-Lee, but what would you prefer?
You can go ahead and just comment then. Yeah, if you're comfortable with that, just remember that we're live streaming and recording.
Okay. I guess I kind of regard the, I think that using the term privilege was something of a mistake that makes it harder for people to see what the heck you mean. Like I regard the fact that I can walk at night without fearing rape, not as a privilege, but as a right. And the problem is not that I have that, but that a lot of people do not.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right, Jim. It's not that you have it.
Using the term privilege. And I think the term privilege sort of obscures what the heck you meant, what the heck people meant by it. Because I always thought of privilege as something that one should not have, as a general rule. And when I saw lists of privilege, I thought, well, some of these are privileges in the sense that I thought it, and some of them are what I would regard as rights, and the problem is that not everybody has them.
I think that's a very astute point, Jim. Absolutely. I think you've hit it right on there. Yeah. Thank you.
Would you mind doing a few comments before they get too crazy, Jana-Lee?
Please.
The first one is from Jacob, actually, and it was answered sort of in the chat, but I think it's a good point to sort of bring up. And he says, this is something I wanted to talk about. I have activist friends who say that all white people are racist. I think you said that was not true. You said the privilege does not automatically mean racist. I could still be racist for other reasons, but not just because I am right. Is this right?
I think that is right. I think, though, that simply because we're saturated in the system that is racist, it's quite likely that we are all racist. But the point is that doesn't make us bad people. It just means that if we have to name that and acknowledge that when we do something, and I don't know, are you racist or do you do something that is racist? Those are two different things, right? So if I've done something that is racist, then I should be open enough to acknowledge that and to learn from that and to figure out how to not do that again or how to do better next time. So, an example is if I'm just having a chat with someone in the wintertime and they happen to be a person of color, and I say, oh, you must be really cold. Like, how are you doing in these Canadian winters? Right? That's meant as like a kind of a comment of, like sort of human compassion. But really, it's kind of rooted in racism, because the only reason I wouldn't say that to a white person, I would really only say that to someone who is of color.
Unless they were from Texas or something, you might.
Perhaps, but I've never said that to someone from Texas. I have said that to someone from Saskatchewan who has brown skin.
Oh,
right?
Interesting. Yeah.
And so, yes, I have done racist things for sure. But I think the whole point is to, when we automatically equate racism with bad people, bad character, bad moral, that is where the problem is. And it stops the conversation, and it doesn't allow us to then grow, right? Or to admit our mistakes and to move on.
Well, it sounds like you're saying we need to keep conversing about things like this. And that's the more the reason is to having that, I guess you would call it a label. One of the things that comes to mind, and generally you and I have talked about this, is on the Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. They talked about hand sanitizers being created, but people of color, they don't work very well, or they don't work as well. But it was the people who invented them weren't trying to not allow that to happen. They weren't evil, mean people. They just didn't think about it.
Yeah, you're talking about the automatic dispensers for soap.
The automatic soap dispenser.
Or water. Yeah, that don't recognize darker skin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And same with facial recognition. The people who have created it got it to work really well with fair skin. But the darker your skin gets, even if you're tanned, it stops working as well. And it's just, we need to think about that when we're creating these things. I think that's what you're trying to say. There's a language around it.
Yeah, those people were not racist. They weren't creating a system for white people.
Yeah.
But because that's sort of what is considered to be sort of this mythical normal, right? And instead of thinking,
or that's what color they were in the lab, and that's who they tested it on each other.
That's right. Yeah, exactly. Such a good example, Adrienne.
Thanks. So, and Helena talks about Coleman Hughes speaks to the stats that you showed earlier. And apparently a couple of people were talking about it, that the system, essentially, I think she's saying that it's a very complex system. So there could be many reasons for, I think those were referring to the stats, the graph that you showed about the different stats for employment.
Oh, there are very, very complex reasons. And like I said, that could be a whole seminar in and of itself to talk about what these differences between, but that doesn't mean that they're not systemic discrimination, right? Because you can't say that a whole group of people is inferior just by how there has to be a reason, a cultural systemic reason that some people are being disadvantaged.
I'm trying to find the solution.
Yeah.
So Helen, also, I'm going to sort of skim through these. There's a bunch of people talking about the fear of walking. How you brought that comment up, and Helen used to walk alone at night. She taught at a gym in a downtown core. You're very brave, Helen. That's all I can say. And she was apprehensive, and she says she felt it was due more problems to crime, not of race. I don't think that's what you were saying. I think it was other people, like my son, who is 6'2", and a big guy walking down the street at night. He's going to feel a lot safer than you, Janelle, who's quite petite and and a woman. Yeah,
absolutely. That was my point. Yeah.
Yes. And Robert also says that his wife is in constant fear as a woman, partly because of upbringing and partly because of experience. And I think that's true, because that rape list, or the reversed rape list that you used, we're kind of fed that. Don't do this, don't do that, because that kind of thing to instill that fear. And Robert says he doesn't get it sometimes because he's not faced with those same things. So I think that's good. And Helen, I taught self-defense. Way to go, Helen. And you did share it to everybody. I didn't know if I could say this. She says that her daughters were both date drugged on the same day during a family holiday. That's awful. And Maria was talking about that rape list. She said she has seen it before. And it is interesting to see it written in a different perspective. I think it's very enlightening. Maria says her her work is female dominated. She wonders how her male coworkers feel. Good point, Maria. Yeah.
Absolutely, because again, then, Maria is a nurse. I hope it's okay that I share that, Maria. That profession evolved as a female dominated profession. And so of course there are systems in place that may cater more to women in that profession. And certainly I think it's changing now, but we absolutely did see you'd be called a male nurse, not just a nurse, right? Like it had to be pointed out, so yeah, for sure.
A derogatory way, yeah.
Yeah, for sure, Larry.
Yeah, good point, Larry. And Danita talks about how her parents worked hard to ensure she had a post-secondary education that gave her an advantage. And that's, I think, true for me as well.
Yeah.
Danita, you and I share that one. So here's a good question. So Gerald says, does being an atheist agnostic who's critical of religion entail a level of privileges as such? I saw a recent incident discussed where a couple of agnostics got into a tiff. One of them, a white guy, critiqued religion, and the other, a black woman, took exception to his comment and told him he was speaking from a position of privilege. That's tricky without knowing the context.
Yeah, I don't know that I can comment on that specific exchange.
Gerald, if you want to speak up, please feel free.
Oh.
First, Gerald.
Gerald?
Is there Gerald's down there? Yeah, there he is. There we go.
I'm afraid I don't know any more than I said. I'm just relaying the story. I didn't actually see the exchange.
Yeah, I think it's really difficult to say, but I do think the idea of religious privilege is an interesting idea. So I think in some ways, being atheist or agnostic, I mean, this is my bias for sure, but might mean that you've maybe spent a little more time reflecting or investigating, maybe have more of a skeptical bent where you're kind of more of an evidence-based person. Perhaps that is a kind of privilege, right? That you've had the opportunity to kind of do that kind of thinking or research. So that perhaps is kind of a privilege. I think we would all agree, though, that if you're a Christian in Canada, you experience privilege. Like that is for sure a privilege that I don't even think that, I think we'd all just agree with for sure. So I think that could go both ways, Gerald, but an interesting point.
Very interesting, yeah. And Jacob talks about walking around at night, but he's learned not to even talk to women because he doesn't want to make them fearful in that situation, which I think is actually really respectful.
Yeah.
So hopefully, let's see. Oh yes, and Jacob also says there's a difference between being a racist and doing something racist, and I think that's a good point too.
One thing about the atheism and privilege. Now, I've heard now there's this observation that atheists are more larger fraction of, or at least out atheists are a larger fraction of white males. And one reasonable hypothesis for why is that if you've already got one, if you're already a member of one disliked group, one prejudiced against group, like being black or whatever, dark skinned or whatever, you're going to have more reason to avoid being part of a second prejudiced against group. And so being an out atheist is going to be worse for somebody who's dark skinned or female.
Maybe, like you're kind of talking about double jeopardy.
Yeah.
I don't know that I can comment on that. Possible, yeah.
Intersectionality.
Yeah.
So Lois actually has, I just have to find it again. Lois had a good comment. Now I was trying to speed ahead to try and see, because there's lots of comments. I wanted to get to the questions, but she had something. Here it is. Oh, I thought this was a really good point. To a large segment of the population, discussions about privilege, it is always implied bad, and people get their back up. And I think that is part of the problem with the discussion, is that people do get their backs up. Like you were saying, I'm not a bad person, right? That maybe you can speak a little bit more to that while I keep reading. There's lots of going on with that.
Like, you know, here's the issue, right? Having privilege is bad if it's disadvantaging other people who, it's what is bad is actually that other people don't have that same privilege. It's kind of what Jim was saying about these should be universal rights. I mean, I've walked in the Take Back the Night marches. Women should have the right to be able to walk outside at night without fear, right? We should have that privilege. Everyone should have that privilege. But it doesn't make me a bad person just because I have it. But I think it does mean that it's my responsibility to recognize it, to try to unearth that, to try to always be questioning. And that's not easy because it is invisible. We're not really meant to see those things because they just seem normal, right? When you turn on your TV and you see people who look like you in the shows that you're watching, on the news programs that you're watching, that is privilege, but you wouldn't notice it, right? Just off the bat, right? So that's the sneaky thing about privilege. It's not good. It's not good, but it doesn't make you a bad person that you have it, right? But now you have a responsibility. Sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, one of the examples that you used, or that fellow in the video, which I thought was very good, by the way, used was about disability. And very early on in my career, I was a teacher in a very, very old, grungy, dumpy high school. And I got, because nobody else wanted to be out in the portable, I got a brand spanking new portable with lovely new boards and desks and coat racks and everything. And it was a lovely, lovely room. But I ended up having a fellow who was in a wheelchair. And because it was only stairs going up, we had to, for that class only, be in the main school. And the second year that he was in my class, he expressed to me, I feel terrible taking everybody out of this nice classroom because I am in a wheelchair. And I never even thought of that as being a possibility. And the school didn't think of it as being a big issue. We'll just move the teacher. And a ramp got built that year. And he was able to go into that classroom like everybody else. So that was a really interesting experience in my teaching career. But also Lois talks about it as a woman in science, and I can share that because both her and I are women in science. A long time ago, I never experienced loss of privilege for being a woman. In fact, people told me I intimidated the guys. I've been told that too, Lois. So we can overcome it for sure. And I never experienced it as a woman in math. I never experienced it either, but
I think that it's fair to say that you guys are the exception. And I can say that because we can look at the statistics of how many women are represented in science and math and STEM, places, and that is changing. It
is changing.
But
when part of it might be interest too, right? A little bit of interest. I don't know.
Right, but where does interest come from, right?
Yeah.
Like why were not as many girls interested in those professions, right? So all of those things are about sort of the systems that we put in place that sort of lead our people, our society, our culture in a certain direction. So you and Lois, I think, are wonderful exceptions and leaders in the field.
Well, and I think that's important to point out. That's what we need more.
I'll just make one more point, Lois, just 1 second. And then I just want to say it is really, I think it's always a mistake to think about creating policy based on acceptance. Right? So
I'm not suggesting that.
Is look at the norm, what's happening in the norm, and that's what we need to be basing decisions on. So sorry, Lois,
I think part of it was it is an exception, but I think part of it was my own attitude. I was very casual about it. I would joke with the guy. If they teased me, I would tease back. I would go along with them, and I made them comfortable.
Yeah.
And they thought they accepted me.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go around with a chip on your shoulder, then you really are going to have a bad time. Now, I know that I'm very concerned about racism. I know I've seen it. And I'm not saying that these things don't happen, but I'm saying a lot of it is what the individual communicates to people around them. I had a Black friend who people forgot he was Black because of his attitude. He made them feel comfortable. And they just, literally, I mean, this is absolutely literal, forgot he was Black.
But the question then, of course, is whose responsibility is that? Is that the responsibility of that person to make everyone else feel okay?
Everybody's responsibility.
It's everybody's, yeah.
But yeah, that's the point, right? Like, so often what happens is we put a lot of emotional labor on people who are part of the non-privileged groups in order to make us feel comfortable. And this is a really main, I'm not going to go back to my slides because we're having such a great conversation, but one of the slides is really about your role is to be able to talk about privilege without making it about your own feelings, right?
Yeah.
Because if you experience privilege, it's not really for us to whine about, oh, they're calling me racist. It's about you saying, yeah, I do experience privilege. That doesn't make me a bad person, but I don't also get to whine about that. And I also don't have to expect the other people to make me feel better about it or to be always explaining. Like, it's my responsibility as a white person, as a white woman, to go out there and educate myself so that I'm not disadvantaging other people or not being racist without knowing it, right? It's not anybody else's responsibility to educate me.
Right, yeah. But I just, well, too many people do whine. I have a friend of mine, when I was doing my postdoc at U of C, a friend of mine wanted me to come to the Women in Science and Engineering group. I went a couple of times and I left just in a horrendous, depressed like crazy, because I have to be honest about it, literal. The whole thing was women whining. And we've got to somehow communicate that it's everybody's responsibility. They wanted other people, their prof, to treat them a certain way, and they were whining about it. Well,
can't have it both ways, right?
Yeah, you have to have it both ways. It has to go both ways.
You can't.
They were almost expecting privilege and were unhappy when they didn't get it.
Yeah, you can't ask to be equal and then in the other breath ask to be treated special.
Yeah, exactly. That's what it is. Yeah.
Well said, Maria. So here's a good one. Wrap your head. Hopefully you can wrap your head around this one generally. This is from Jacob again. Another problem I see with, quote, "you are racist until the racist system is torn down," unquote, is that the, quote, "torn down racist system is poorly defined. Who decides when the system has been torn down enough? This might be unfalsifiable. What would prove to you that the system has been torn down? This is important because you might be racist until the racism system is torn down." A lot to unwrap there.
Wow, that is a really, really big and very good question.
Very good. Yeah.
I suppose if we had the answer to that, like, what is the perfect society? We'd win. But,
and I like his point about we need to make something falsifiable so we can actually see that things are progressing, I guess, is what.
I suppose there are lots of ways that we measure these things, right? Some of them that we talked about before, you can look at the statistics of unemployment rate. You can look at who's incarcerated in prison, who's being pulled over for traffic stops, who's who's being educated, how much money people are making or not making. Like you can, there are lots of things that can be measured. Who's in power, right? Who are your political representatives? Who are running the big companies? Who are the principals in schools? All of those things can be measured. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I know.
Actually, I just recently looked. I looked at the stats for women in principalships in Canada, and we're doing pretty good compared to the US.
Well, that's good.
It's actually more than 50%.
Okay.
So I was really surprised with that. So
which is awesome. but still not representative of the number of women teachers versus men.
Correct. Correct. That is absolutely correct. We're getting there. We're going in the right direction. And if you look at the last 20 years, there's been a huge change. I just looked at it. I don't know why. I think my husband and I were talking about it for some reason, and I may have remembered it incorrectly. So don't take my word for it. But I just do seem to remember that I was pleased with the direction it was going. So here's a question. This is sort of from Helen, who says, my 10-year-old grandson has been told in his classroom that because he is white, he has privilege. What are your thoughts on that, Janelle?
I think it's true.
And would it
I think if you're white in Canada, I think if you're white in Canada, you have privilege. That doesn't mean that your grandson is a bad person, right? Or that he did anything in order to get that privilege. He was simply born.
But I guess we have to look at the context. Is he being told that in a negative context or in a positive context, or are they trying to improve things? Like, that's what I'm trying to say, I think there.
Yeah.
I think that's what
I have no way to
Probably
know.
took it as being a bad person.
Well, we don't know though. We weren't in that. It could have been a conversation like this, saying, this is what privilege is, and if you're white, then you do it. You experience it simply because.
Can a 10-year-old understand? Can a 10-year-old understand?
I don't know, Lois. I think that they can, depending on how it was.
And that's, I think,
if
a big
it was
point.
in a elementary school, the children are very simple in their arguments. So
very black and white.
10-year-olds are,
however, they're pretty amazing. They're pretty amazing.
And if it was a presentation in a school, I don't know. I would sort of assume that it was geared to their level of understanding. So, my short answer is, I think it's true. I don't know the context. I don't know how it was presented
and how it was handled.
That's
and
right.
I know certainly that young children are, when I go in and talk about Tourette syndrome and OCD and all these things, those young kids are really able to handle very difficult concepts. So I think we sometimes underestimate, and it would depend on what the teacher said, for sure. Helen, you want to respond?
If I can respond to my little grandson, Charlie, why is it even being brought up?
great question.
Well,
teaching.
My answer would be that we live in a society that unfairly disadvantages certain people simply for the way they happened to exist in the world that we built. And if we ever want to address that, then we need to look at things like privilege.
He's 10.
And he should be able to openly have a conversation about it.
No.
Because how else do we change? How else do we move forward from this stuff if we can't name it and talk about it and understand it and then move forward together in order to try to make a change?
Helen, did you talk to the teacher?
No, I'm the grandmother, not the mother.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, you're right. But was it like social studies or something that they were discussing, or,
Hey, Larry, hold on. Go ahead, Helen. Go ahead.
It came up in his class, and his mom relayed it to me, and I was furious, and I'd rather not go there tonight because I think everybody knows why.
That's fine. Yeah, thank you. And I wanted to move on to Mike's comment, which I think is a really interesting one. He said, one place I worked would not hire a male receptionist because they wanted a pretty woman to greet people. Yeah. So, right. In one way, this is a privilege to being an attractive woman, but also sexist in seeing the value of a woman only being in her appearance. There's so many things wrong with that.
Oh, 100%. Thanks, Mike, for that comment. Yeah, very good. Yeah.
Yeah. And here's another one. I've definitely had people turn against me in the workplace when they find out I am an atheist and they are not. I would call that bias or even discrimination. Not sure about privilege. That's a good point. I'm not sure what you...
I sort of missed some of that. Sorry.
Start over again. You bet. So Robert says, I have definitely had people turn against me in the workplace when they find out I am an atheist and they are not, I would call this bias or even discrimination, not sure about privilege.
I guess for sure bias discrimination is there something that you're not able to access in your workplace because of that identification? That, you know, that's when you could maybe say that it's privilege. Like, are you excluded from being invited out for drinks with your coworkers because of that?
You feel like you can't talk truthfully.
That's right. Like, do you have to censor your talk in the coffee room? Like that is definitely about privilege then. Like, you can, it is okay in most cases, it's okay to identify as Christian.
Openly. Yeah, they talk about going to church all the time, but I went to my atheist book club last night.
Yeah, that's something that I have censored myself.
Yeah, I have too.
In my workplace. Yep. Yeah, I think it is privilege. It is because it's a privilege to be Christian in Canada.
Mm-hmm. And this is true. Maria talks about privilege is not universal in that you may have privilege in one society, but not another.
Yep.
So I think that's true. If we actually move to another society, we might find ourselves to not be the privileged ones. Yep. That's a really good point.
Yep.
And there's long comments. Forgive me if you want to talk some more while I read through. Oh my goodness, I just looked at the number. There's 46 messages.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
I'll try and whip through and see if there's some.
While you're doing that, Adrian, I think I have a few more slides. I will go back.
Go for it.
See if there is anything important that I missed. I don't think so, but.
And I'll take a look to find people who haven't spoken yet and see if I can find some comments from them or questions. It's a hot topic.
Do you mind if I ask a quick question? It's Maria. I don't know if you can hear.
Yes, Maria, go ahead.
Or it was just a comment I made. I just wonder about, eliminating privilege. And when you look at how do we ever achieve that? Because it'll always be whoever creates the system, the systems will be based on their biases. So are we kind of in an infinity circle of how do we ever solve that? And even though we work towards it, it'll still be biased for whoever makes those rules.
Yeah, I think you're probably right.
It's being human.
Yeah, there's no such thing as perfection, right? We can always do better.
We can always do better, yes.
Always do better. And we should always be trying to do better by learning more, asking those questions, measuring the outcomes, and applying our knowledge.
Well, to a degree, but so often these days it's being presented in such dreadful ways that more often than not people are reacting to it angrily. It's separating people. And I know this from, friends I've talked to on other, like websites and stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so somehow I get the strong feeling that it's being approached in the wrong way.
I guess I need a lot more context than that, Lois, to really understand what you mean. But I think we're in a really interesting, highly polarized time when polarized in many, many different ways, right? Like polarized in terms of race, polarized in terms of education, polarized in terms of income disparities that are growing, the middle class being gutted, all those things going on, polarized in terms of politics. I think you're right in that it does make it more difficult for us to work together.
Yes.
I think this whole concept gets people's backs up, and if you really think about it, if you've spent your whole life unknowingly in a position of privilege, working hard,
I knew
not
it.
having
I
things
understood
handed
it.
to you,
even as a
and
kid,
then all of a sudden another group comes along and says, you have what we should have, it's understandable that you would get your back up and that it would be a
No,
really, really
that
difficult
wasn't my
conversation.
experience. Well, when I was a kid, I felt privileged, even though I had very little. I felt very, well, I think the word fortunate is better than privilege.
Yeah, fortunate's a good word. Yeah.
But I do know again, I've talked to a number of people in different, of course, I follow several different groups and getting conversations with them. And so many people have had such bad experiences. And they have found it creating divisions. Okay, you're a white male, you're a white female, you're this, you're that, and just categorize you and create divisions where there weren't divisions before. And I think it is the approach, but it has caused some really serious problems. And I think a totally different approach is needed. And of course, you know me, I think it should be done from an evolutionary psychology standpoint. to understand that this is the nature of the beast. And it's built into us. The us, them is built into us. And so it's not something that we're doing, it's something we have to learn more about. And well, like a book I read many, many, many years ago called On Aggression. He said, aggression is normal. It's there. We're not going to be able to get rid of it, but we can redirect it.
Mm. Yeah,
And he said, it's much better to have a race to the moon than to have a war with Russia.
I like that. Actually, that's good.
Let me just flip through these last couple slides here. And this is just lots of people, when I do these presentations, talk about, well, then what do I do? Like, how do I be an ally? And, I just think it has to start with knowledge, and that knowledge starts with your self-knowledge. Like when I ask people to take a minute and reflect on what kind of privilege do you experience, that's the starting place. And then going out and seeking information with empathy, which I think is Lois's message always, is to approach it with empathy. And then in an informed way, what's the action that you're going to take? And that it can be a small action or a large action or action over your lifetime. That action piece depends on where you are in your journey. When we know better, we do better. What can I do? What can I do about this without making it about my feelings? This is really important because when we feel like we're being attacked, we shut down and we close doors, right? Exactly. So what can we do? How can we reflect on this without making it personal to ourselves and really looking at it from a systems approach? What am I going to pledge to do now that I've informed myself? And I quote from Justin Ford, once you recognize that you have privilege, it's your responsibility to figure out how to share it, how to extend it to those who don't have it. And maybe even how do you use your privilege as a platform to make the world better, right? To sort of fight some of that. And then I just really like this little meme. If you're tired of hearing about racism, imagine how tired some people are of experiencing it. Right? I think this is really interesting because this feeling that some of us have about being called out, about being racist, or if you're white, you're racist, or if you're white, you have privilege, it's not fun to hear. And we're sort of like tired of it. Like, I don't want to talk about it anymore. Then I think, what if that's every day, all day, your whole life? You live that from the other side. I think it's okay for us to be a little bit uncomfortable as we try to work through this.
Generally, may I ask, where does that happen in your sphere in today in Canada?
What do you mean?
Racism?
Sorry, Helen, what are you asking?
In relationship to the poster that you just put up, I've seen that before, but to me it's a meme rather than a truth. And do you see it? My question is, where do you see it happening all the time in a Canadian society, which is one of the most free from racism countries in the world, including the UK. Most of the G7 countries are not totally involved in this. They are free countries to be able to support those people that are different racial, different mindset, different gender. And I'm sorry, I've interrupted your conversation, but I think just to clarify, where is this happening immediately? Because it never happened in the past. It hasn't happened recently until just recently. It has come up in so many conversations. I mean, by the comments even tonight, it's a huge conversation. And in Canada, we are so lucky to be here that we don't experience this, and we're being told over and over that we do. And
Well, maybe we don't, Helen, but go ahead, Russell.
So Helen, let me give you a story that from my youth, so that you can appreciate just a different way that the country is. And I'll put this towards you. I am very proudly Canadian. Anyone who knows me knows I'm pretty much a monarchist. Canada is, I've traveled through some of Western Europe, Caribbean states, what have you. So I have interesting stories about police officers, mostly ironically good, at least in Canada. But for me to understand sometimes where race fit in, the best story I have is going to Moscow. The Russians never had what we call slavery. They were late to the boat. They had other places they wanted to be, other things they want to see. So in 1998, when I went there, I was doing my university course. I had a different perception and feeling of what it was to be in a society that was generally white, Caucasian, blah, 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 blah. The way that police approached me, the way that I was able to walk into places and get service and what have you, felt viscerally different. I did not have someone following me in a store. I didn't have to prove what I was doing. And this is not to say that Canada's a bad place, but it had a change in perception. I was perceived as being an American, which very, very got me very upset. And they were surprised when I pulled out my Canadian passport, and I would go through reasons why I would have it on me at all times, but as a part of the system over there. But there was a culture, so in their cases, those from the Caucasus, who were treated badly in a historic nature. And the way I looked at them being treated by the police was often the way I imagine someone who is African American in New York being treated by their police. So sometimes these things, especially in Canada, we have not, at least in a broader community, we've not talked about them, but they have been underlying in many parts of Canada for quite some time. And if you don't mind, I could even forward you, there's a report in Nova Scotia whose name's done in the early 70s, talking about many of these same problems that we haven't talked about broadly. So, if you want to have that conversation, I'd be more than happy to have it with you.
Thank you, Russell. I would be happy to see that. However, I still feel that there's you know, I'll let this move on. It's hard for us to do that. I would be happy to see the information you have.
No worries. No worries.
Thank you, Russell. That was a very interesting perspective. Something very different than anything I have ever heard explained before. And are we ready for more questions, Generally? I've got a really interesting one from Hi, because we haven't heard from Hi yet, and I think this is a really interesting one. What do you think about the diversity hire from corporations? Nowadays in my field, which is engineering, it seems to me being white male has the least advantage being hired in many companies. I can see this from my own company for sure. Isn't the white privilege being overplayed in our society, meaning making being white guilty? It's an interesting question.
Such a good question.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it really speaks to kind of the evolution of how we're trying to deal with this problem. And that previous conversation we were having about how do we know when we get there? Or how do we, you know, we need to be continually improving how we're approaching this problem, you know. And back in the early days, we said, well, we're going to have the Employment Equity Act, for example, which designated 4 groups that we were going to hire. And if you were a federal agency, you had to count those people and you had to report in, and your funding counted. You know, if you were going to get a grant from the federal government, you had to meet certain quotas. And I think what we've really found is that's not a really good way. That's not a really good way to do it. It does create a lot of backlash, but you know, I think we're all learning. Like we don't really, like, these systems have been in place for hundreds of years and have evolved without really a lot of conscious thought. It wasn't like some evil people were sitting around saying, how do we make this really difficult for these? Well, in some cases, like, I mean, I think if you look at residential schools, that sort of thing, like, yes, those were some people saying, let's make this bad. But in general, these systems were kind of created without the intention of exploiting or discriminating against people. And so it is really, really hard for us to take them apart. And because it's not just one thing, it's not just at that point of hiring that we can that things are either broken or fixed, right? So it's all of the things that happen before that point. Who gets the education? Who thinks that they should go into engineering? Right? Who has the family support that they need in order to get through an engineering degree, right? Who has the family status, right? Like, who's a single parent who can or cannot access that kind of career pathway, right? So there's all of these things that come into play before we ever get to that point. And then once we're in an organization, who do we, and you're already hired, well, who are we promoting? Who gets to stay late to do that project and get the accolades for doing that? And who had to go home because they had a sick kid, or because they relied on transit and they had to catch that last bus and couldn't, you know, be there to, you know, go out for a drink with the boss afterwards. Or like, there's all of these other systems that are so much more difficult to fix, right? So as an employer, I can see that would be one place where you could say, look, we have to be better at hiring a more diverse workforce. And so here's the directive. But I think what we know is that I mean, it's certainly not the only way to look at the system, or even maybe the best way to look at the system. But
well, and it's an interesting thing when you have those systems in place, because of course I was part of that when I first went out into the workforce, where there was a real push to get women into high school teaching jobs. And I was accused, and that really made me mad. I was accused, the only reason you got this job is because you're a woman. I was mad. I was top of my class. I had the best credentials. The teaching reports were amazing. So that's one of the problems, I guess, that can happen from those systems that try to make it more equitable, is that there can be unfair blame. And it kind of leads me into let's see if I can find out what Jacob said, which is, I feel that I treat all races equally, and some activists have treated me like garbage because I am a white man. I am public enemy number one. And I don't think that's right either. I think that's a problem, and that sort of speaks to what I just talked about as well, but in a different context, but very similar issue. Hi, did you have something to say? It looked like you were going to talk.
Yeah, just I have quite a few friends that they're white. They're actually they're angry actually, because it seems like they're aware the least actually. If you talk about racist, I can tell you all about racists in China. I can tell all the racists in India, because all these people that actually I'm telling you, if you are colored in China, you're doomed, right? But in here, actually, a lot of I'm thinking white people, they don't even look at the colors. They don't think of colors. Only seems like a colored people think about colors. It's true in our company. I'm not kidding. In my group, not even my group, when I had a meeting, we have a managers and all this together. There was like we have 20 people, but 2 white guys, and the rest was all colored. But we can joke about the white guys or whatever we want. The white guys say nothing. I can imagine if it's a white employee, if you say one word about our colored, being white, being Chinese, immediately he'll be fired immediately. So I just feel like it has turned the table. It's so much that our poor, our colleagues, is so fear. And then something. I have a white friends, have a color friend, Chinese, black and white, everything. And then I have a colleague that told me that, hi, I'm on the job now. He's in his late 50s. It's very difficult to get a job. Is that every time when I look at the job description, if it says this, we are doing this diversity hire, I immediately know that that's not for me, because they already took me off that list. If I apply, I know I'm not going to get a job. So he's so mad, actually. What can I say? I said, oh, well, in this society seems like, and then there's every company right now has a diversity hire. And I have just feel so sorry for these people. I don't have to worry about my job because I'm retired anyway. But I'm just thinking, I don't know. I know that's a privilege is the thing we all understand. But are we here? Just I don't know about as a generally said as other area probably do, but I just talk about the engineering field. This is what I see. That's I can only say about that. I don't know about any other educational or other nurses, other area. I just feel like I don't know, at least in my field, I feel very, very sorry for middle-aged white people. There are just no chance to be hired.
Well, thank you. Hi, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. But I would question, just have a question about how much of that is perception and how much of that is true. Now I know you're speaking about your own company and your sort of the experience.
It's this field, yeah. It is field.
But just because an organization says, we encourage people of diverse backgrounds to apply, does not necessarily mean that if you're white, you're not going to get hired. But that is a bit of that backlash against this, and that's sort of this counter narrative that I think is being put out there to say, if you're white, you're screwed now. But is it necessarily true? I don't think the statistics bear it out. I think if you look at the statistics, you can still see white men do pretty well in our society.
It may be, but I just feel like in the engineering company, if you look at even in some oil companies, I have my own experience too in my team. I wanted to hire somebody, and my boss gave me someone which is colored, and I have no idea I had a chat with this person. That was a few years ago. He was a little bit senior, so should be able to do the job. By the end, it's just absolutely not qualified at all. So I was talking to my boss, so why we hire this person? He said, oh, because he's so and so colored, that this is our policy. And I was very disturbed. I said, you are So don't you care about our quality? You don't care about our, our engineering. It's not something the job you do and then you screw it up. And it's not because engineering is very dangerous. You don't do a good job. If you do screw it up, it could be dangerous. It could, or oil, do the job for oil and gas. This is my only experience too. A few years ago, and of course now even that was not even worse. Actually, I'm telling you. So I don't know about other fields. I can speak for other fields. I know for sure. I've talked to a lot of I've quite a few people have talked about this. But just look at my own company, right? 20 people, 2 white guys. This is obviously, all these people, a lot of new hires. We have new hires. So I just look at it every time. It's especially if I have a boss from non-white background, I can guarantee the people he hires are a lot of them just not white at all. Right? I don't remember even any time for the last 5 years I was in a company in my area, any white guy was ever hired, and none. So it just very disturbing for that point of view when I was there, and but I don't know any other areas. Maybe they're not the same, but I'm just saying what I see.
I mean, that's been your experience. And
yeah,
that's fair. Yeah, and I have one where our time is flying by here. I have one more comment that I'm going to do because it looks like there's just some conversations that are going back and forth in the chat. And I wanted to just bring up, I thought this was an interesting one after Russell's talk about Russia. Neil said that he was very surprised how racist people were when he arrived from England 15 years ago. I thought that was an interesting comment because we wouldn't think that that would be something to consider if you come from England, but he obviously experienced it. Neil, did you want to expand on that a little bit? And then after you've talked, I think we'll call it a day and open it up to just general discussion, stop the recording. Does that sound good?
Yeah, the reason why I was expanding on that, and I was enjoying everything. This is a great conversation. Well done, everyone. It's a lot of fun. I've been listening for a long time, and everyone's perspective is 100% valid. Because
I have to say that the conversation, it's been on many sides, and I think everybody has done very well, and everyone has been very respectful. So thank you. Go ahead.
I grew up. My neighbors were Pakistani, Indian, and Jamaican and Irish, and they were like next door but one, next door but two, and stuff like this. And I grew up with that. They were my friends when I was 5, 6, 7 years old. And so I by the time I was 7, I loved Indian food. I realized that Pakistanis and Indians didn't like each other much, but Jamaicans didn't like the whites, and the Indians didn't like the blacks. But no one was racist. No, the rate was never an issue. But that's how I was brought up. My parents never said black this or green that or blue that. It never ever happened. So when I grew up and then I was 11, 12, 13 years old, when someone said, "Oh, that so-and-so did that," I said, "Well, what was he driving? Was he the driver of the car, or was he a Paki, or was he a black guy? Or was he just a person driving the car? Or was he just, what is it that you had a problem with it? Is it because he was doing something stupid when he was driving or anything?" I wasn't race blind or color blind, not by any means. But because I was brought up in that culture, which is what the whole point of what John Lee is saying, it's endemic. There are some people. As a teenager, I was jumping barriers and going on anti-Nazi marches and stuff like that, right? Because I was absolutely horrified of how that people actually thought that way. Because it's completely abhorrent to me. Because as a 6 and 7 year old kid, right? I was playing with just like kids with the cricket bat, kids with the football, kids with the rugby ball. It didn't matter as long as they had the gear. It was totally irrelevant. And it's only culture. It's only what you're brought up with that dictates how you then behave. And you can't help it. There's no wrong or right. No, there's no judgment here. Right? But when I came here and everyone's a bloody farmer and they don't know how to turn around, they don't know how to go around corners, right? That's a cultural thing. You Canadians have been brought up with dead straight roads for freaking miles and miles and miles, right? In England, right, or in Britain, or in most of Europe, you've got actually the countryside is, you can't see for 3 miles, right? Because there's like hills and stuff. Oh yeah, by the way, yeah, generally there are hills, right? Yeah. It's like, but they exist, and it's different, and it makes an enormous difference to the way you behave. When I came to this country, I didn't like, oh my goodness, I'm English. I thought, oh my goodness, I'm European, right? Because the North American way, when you've been brought up, on the farms with 3 freaking days to watch your dog run away and all this sort of stuff, it's actually true. And it's a very, very different attitude. And when you're brought up in Europe, the people who have been to Europe and traveled around Europe, you will actually have some sort of appreciation that it's like very, very different. And when you grow up in that environment, like I never heard a racist comment till I was 11 years old, and then it was against the Irish because of the Irish pub bombings, right? And then I was what I did. It was like so, but no one in my neighborhood ever said anything until the IRA decided to start bombing my city center, right? But that was what I was brought up with. Now you, Adrian, Janley and whatnot and everything, Hai is very, very different. But because of that cultural difference, your real internal standpoint is you start from a very, very different point of view. And so when I came here and realized that everyone thinks they're from farmers, right? And everything's meat and potatoes. And I thought, who are these people? The cultural difference is absolutely enormous. And I'm not going to say any more. So thank you.
Well, Neil, Jacob had a funny comment. The only thing I hate more than racism is the Irish. So there you go.
Yeah. If you go to Ireland, right? If you were pedaling or motorcycling or anything around Ireland, and I've done pedaling and motorcycling and traveling around in a car. I literally like flew through Dublin once, but I've been all over Ireland, north, south, west.
Ireland's beautiful.
And it is fabulous.
People are wonderful.
The people, they will give you the, and
all kidding aside, right?
Our car broke down, and by the time that we'd sort the kids out and found them and got them something to eat, and we were desperate to go to the bathroom and all this sort of stuff, right? And nothing was open or anything like that. But this guy came, grabbed the car, fixed it, and brought it back. Yeah. Because that's actually the way. Actually, the way most people think. Yeah. That's the way most people behave. And it happened to me in France. It happened to me in Yugoslavia, the old Yugoslavia, many years ago. But people are actually like that, one-on-one. It's like there's no racism.
And when Jacob said he was kidding, I knew you were kidding. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said it out loud. So of course,
Oh,
I'm sure they're nice.
I just read that, Helen. Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you,
Yeah.
Helen. Helen just said, Neil, I couldn't have said it better. Thank you. And I think that's a really good way to close things off. Thank you very much, everybody. So I will end the recording, but we can stay and talk until 9 or so if we would like. It'll be less monitored, so please be on your best behavior still. And
I'm gonna say the F word.
Heated topic. All right.
Can I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate everybody coming. Even if you have a different opinion about this, I really appreciate people being engaged and wanting to talk about this. It's a really important topic. I think it's a really important topic of our time, and I just appreciate everybody being here. So
yes.
Thanks.
And thank you. And make sure you come on the 5th of May for our next one. Hopefully we see everybody, maybe some new faces as well. So thank you so much. And
Oh, nice to see you, Russell. I've never seen you on one of these things.